Great. Okay. Well, first of all, on behalf of Ag Commissioner Doug Goehring and myself, we want to say thank you all for being here. We wish we were together for a different topic. I mean, drought is one of the most challenging and insidious things that hits a community. Having spent my whole life in agriculture, I know that, but of course I grew up in the valley. We got less drought over there in my lifetime than the folks, but I've also been part of an operation in Slope County since the 1990s. Got a lot of neighbors out there, so I've certainly in my lifetime understand that. But we got a real dose of this back in the 1980s. Unfortunately, we got a big dose of it back in 2017 when as I like to say, Doug won. Doug 2, he got elected first. But anyway, Doug 1 and I were going around the state doing drought meetings, but it's just hard. It's hard on communities. It's hard on livestock producers. It's hard on anybody that's in grain or row crop production. And then the standpoint from us as a state, we want to be here to listen, we want to understand, we want to advocate for you, but of course, most of the billions of dollars that come in programs are federal. So then part of it is we want to learn everything we can so that we can put pressure on now Secretary Vilsack from the Ag Department, our CODEL, of course, Hovind, Armstrong, and Kramer are always fighting for ag in North Dakota, and they're great advocates. I was on a call earlier today with some other governors with Secretary Vilsack, and of course it's we wish some of us, wish we had a different administration in business, but at least we got an ag secretary that's from an ag state who's a former governor who understands that states have a role to play, and as a former governor of Iowa for a number of years, and as former secretary, he gets this, and so we were hitting him with some topics. We'll talk about that, but I want to just say again, thank you for being here. We want to hear from you. I'm going to do a few opening remarks. Doug 1 will do a few opening remarks, and then we're going to open it up to get feedback from all of you. The reason why we got cameras running is I believe this is being live streamed. There are people that are from around the state that couldn't get here that are further away than maybe some of you drove, and so they're listening in live, and we want to just make sure that we're trying to get as much outreach to as many people as possible. I want to thank Lindsay is here. We had a special request for having signing here tonight, and some of you may remember Lindsay from the 85 press conferences, but I don't know how she signs "Thank you, Lindsay" when I'm talking about her, but she just did that. Okay, all right. But we're other folks that are up here at the head table. We got John Pikowski, who's the state engineer and is from Water Commission, and both Doug 1 and I serve on the Water Commission, and we'll get some updates from these two gentlemen on some of the things that are going there. We've got, of course, to my right, our Adjutant General, General Dorman. The National Guard is involved in generally every single emergency response we have. Part of in North Dakota, the way the structure includes emergency services and Homeland Security, and so to his right is our Homeland Security Director, Cody Schultz. So they're here available for questions. We got NDSU Extension is here. We got Miranda Meehan, Extension Disaster Coordinator, somewhere out here in the audience. Rick Schmidt, can you raise your hand if you're here? There's Rick, all right. Okay, I should have spotted the green NDSU, or at least the agent cap there from Oliver County, and then Kala Jabro, McLean County. Here, thank you. Do you say Kala? Kala, okay, all right, Kala. Well, thank you, Rick and Kala, Miranda. They're available for questions. There's resources we want to hear from them. USDA Farm Service Agency, Caitlin Dillard. Is Caitlin here? Right over here, great, wave your hand, keep your hand up. It's with the Farm Service Agency, McLean County FSA Executive Director. And then the Washburn City Commission President Larry Thomas couldn't be here, but we want to thank him and the commission staff for all they do. And then of course, I saw her on the way in, but Dana Morrison and the entire team here at Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center from North Dakota Parks and Rec, thank you for sharing this great facility. For Doug and I, just to get us kicked off, how many of you came in from 20 miles away? We'll keep going to larger thing. That's 20 miles away. Get them up high. Okay, and then they're down. So then how many people would have come from more than 20 but less than 50? A group of people. And then anybody that's from further than 50 miles away? Anybody more than 100 miles away? A few? Okay, all right. Well, thank you for making the trip in. When we get into Q&A later on, if you could, say your name and your headquarters area or where you're from, help us understand, because this drought has been so spotty. I just came from an event at Jamestown with ADM, talking to a group of folks there, and we had somebody by Marion that had a 10-inch range gauge that overflowed for 2 hours. They think they had 12 inches, and somebody that lived 10 miles away that got a teeny fraction of that. So it's help us understand what's going on. But no matter how far any of you drove to get here, I mean, one thing we can assume you're here because when these folks, Cody and the general, help drive the drought reporting that Doug and I get to see every week. But 99.1% of our state is in drought. According to last week's drought monitor, 2/3 of the state, 67%, is in extreme, which is normally the bad stuff. There's actually there's a section worse than extreme. It's called exceptional. And now we have 18% of the state is in exceptional drought, and that is the highest percentage that we've had in more than 20 years. From October to April, I don't need to tell any of you this because some of you, had an open winter, but it was the driest in North Dakota history since record keeping began 127 years ago, driest winter. And as these two gentlemen, which are involved on the wildfire, we had our first wildfire incident in January of this year near the South Dakota border down by Scranton and Hettinger. So again, we know that we got a full-blown crisis here in the state. You can count on the fact that from the state, from Ag Commissioner, myself, any of the other state agencies, that we can do things to help you, we'll do it. We're here to learn from you and get ideas and move forward, because we know that ag is the bedrock of the communities with or without a drought. And again, I'm sure for some of you, after everything we've been through with the floods of October 19 that we had, where we had the record snowstorm, then we had spring flooding. We just have had, as we say, the flock of black swans that keeps landing. And I think everybody with higher prices and things heading up had a little extra spring in their step this spring, and this is the year. And then to get hit with this. So it's, we know it's a tough situation for both the farmers and the ranchers. We had a meeting on Monday in Fargo. We want to hear stories like this helps us as we build our request that we'll make to the feds for a federal designation for emergency. But Casey Bitts, who I got to meet in person today in Jamestown as well, his normal, cutting 21 bales on his first cutting, he got 2 bales. And we've got places where even they've had 1.5 inches of rain, and then 2 days later you can't see when you're driving down the road. It's so dusty. We know that. Anybody here from Napoleon? Around there, anybody haul cattle in Napoleon? They had 2,500 head for their sale that were scheduled this week, and 3,500 head showed up. So we know that people are liquidating their sometimes their genetics, which we know is a tough thing. We did. Today, as we say, we did push hard again with Secretary Vilsack today. The one thing, of course, we know we're looking for is part of that emergency declaration is to change some of the rules on CRP, because maybe some of you can share stories with us, but we believe that, as Doug and I fought for in 17, if we can get access onto that CRP for either livestock or haying before that August 1st date. If we wait after that, I think you all know that if we don't get any rain, there's going to be no value there. On the fire front, Cody gets to track all these with the general. We've had 1,400 fires that have burned more than 100,000 acres since January. That's about 156 square miles if you want to do your math on that. Which is about more than 4 townships, 4.5 townships. By comparison, last year for the whole season we only had about just over 12,000 acres. So we're not even officially into the fire season, and we're already 10x what we were last year. And these guys can go over the obvious stuff, but we know that nobody ever starts a fire intentionally, but some of these can be started if you're out there in that dry weather trying to do your operation. So be careful out there, do all the smart things, and call for help if you get a fire started, especially on a windy day. Don't do the thing that we do in North Dakota, which is, I got this, I can put it out myself. That's where some of these blazes have really taken off, because we got people that are just too independent, too strong. So first thing, cell phone. If you got cell service, let somebody know you got a fire. Number two, then start putting it out. Make sure you got fire extinguishers, et cetera, on your equipment. But most of all, just be careful. We did declare things we have done so far is we did declare a statewide drought disaster back on April 8th. Same day, Commissioner Goehring and I and the rest of the state commission reactivated the drought disaster livestock water supply program project system. And we got a handout here that's got the details, and John Pikowski from the Water Commission put this together. They're available to answer questions for you on that and talk about how we can do that. We did have that going in 17, and we supported more than 500 projects, which are still operating today. We have already authorized more than those this year, but again, we want to keep building that resilience there. And the commissioner and I did approve through the Water Commission last week another $2 million for those projects, bringing that to $4.1 million. So with that, I'll turn it over, the microphone over to Doug, and just say again, thank you all for being here. We're looking forward to hearing your feedback and your questions and your remarks.
Thank you.
Let's give it up for our great Ag Commissioner.
I guess it's on. Can you hear me? All right. Well, good afternoon, and as the governor said, it'd be better to meet under different circumstances, but it's always good to see so many of you. I know I've been getting around in some of the communities and some of the areas, and we've been having some conversations about some of the issues. We are going to be open for some questions today, and some things that you may get as feedback may not be pleasant because it's going to be the truth. Some of it will give you a bit of hope, but I wanted to just lay out a little bit of framework where we're at, and I know the governor already talked about the drought disaster livestock water supply program. There's $4.1 million that's been authorized to it to date, and it sounds like the program's actually doing pretty good, and I know if John wants to say a few words about that in a while, he sure can. The hay hotline is up and active in our department, and you can go on there and you can actually go on the interactive map, put your cursor on any given spot where there's something that designates there's either trucking services, there's feed, there's pasture, there might be some CRP that's open for grazing, but give it a shot. I know we haven't had as many people putting stuff in there because, quite frankly, there isn't a whole lot out there. And it's clear across the state. This somewhat mirrors what we went through in 2017. 2017 had a great deal of Montana, part of South Dakota. We seem to have hit and miss in some of those spots, but certainly going over into Minnesota. The other thing that's I know continues to come up, and I've been getting calls since probably back in late February and March, and it's been, what are we going to do about this drought? We've had an open winter, it's been good for feeding, but what happens if we have a drought? Well, for most of our grain producers, those that called, they pretty much know what that answer is. You have a few tools that you get to use to mitigate your risk in agriculture. And when it comes to farming, you got crop insurance. When it comes to our livestock producers, they don't have a whole lot. Livestock need feed and water. And this year, doesn't seem we have a whole lot of that. And I know there's a need for wanting to get out and graze CRP, but the problem is in your area, there probably is very little CRP, and if there is any, it's probably pretty short. And I don't know if any of the FSA people are here, but check with your FSA office. You need to write them, petition them if you have some CRP, and then they're going to look at your practices. They're going to look at the CRP contract, which is another problem that comes up also. There's well over 70, it might even be close to 90 different types of CRP contracts. Some you cannot graze. When that person enrolled it, they could get more money. There was an incentive if you did a CP23, for example, or certain other CRP contracts that actually locked that land up and didn't allow it to be grazed. Now, in 2017, Secretary Perdue at that time overrode some of that. He got in a bit of trouble for it, and I'm not sure where it's at nowadays, if you could even go back and try to do something like that. But it is a conversation that we'll probably have with Secretary Vilsack to see, is there an opportunity on some of that? Yes, sir. Okay, so they've, okay. Okay, well, that's great, because one of the other problems we're dealing with, when you're in these transitions, when you have new administrations coming in, you have no one there to take the blows, to take the beatings, or to take the glory. And the problem is, when you have career employees there, the last thing they want to do is stick their neck out, because they'll get it chopped off if they need a scapegoat. And then those poor people that spent 28 years of building a career within USDA lose their job over making the right decision for the right reasons and applying a little common sense. But that's great. We had been requesting a while back if they could at least address some of that issue. So thank you very much. I need to get updated. You want to come work for me? The other things that are available, back in 2015, started working with Undersecretary Skuse at that time, and that was to address some of the issues and the criteria around disaster declarations. They're political in nature. They generally cause a lot of confusion. You get a lot of people pushing, pulling, and they generally don't do us any good. So what they did is they started to design criteria based on, for example, with a drought, a D4, a D3 were automatics, a D2. There was a time frame that was put in place, such as 8 weeks. At that point, it would trigger and open up certain programs, such as ECP, which is the Emergency Conservation Program, the ELAP, Emergency Livestock Assistance Program, or the Livestock Forage Program. Those are now open in the state of North Dakota, all but 4 counties, which means grazing of CRP is also open at a 50% carrying capacity, not more than 90 days. The issue that we're trying to work on next, excuse me, has to do with CRP haying. And we've been on this a while trying to figure out what's the labyrinth that we have to migrate through and who do we have to work with. And we're working on an MOU with the sportsmen and wildlife groups to see if there's something we can address early on, see how quickly we can open up CRP for haying. Now, again, I know I get my ear chewed off all the time. Opening it up doesn't solve the problem because vegetation is short. It probably still means that we have places where people are going to have to call hard in their herds. And unfortunately, in some places, and I've already talked to people about this, they've already gone through dispersion. And thank God that the laws were changed back in 2017 on gains. So there is no tax liability if you purchase back those livestock within 4 years, especially under our situation here in North Dakota. If you're in a disaster issue, that's not a problem. But you do have to purchase cattle back so that you don't have to suffer those gains that were taken this year if you do have to sell. I also know, believe me, I know, it's costly to feed cattle right now if you want to retain ownership. I've heard anywhere from $2.60 all the way up to $3.79 a day to feed a cow-calf pair someplace. Out of this state, mind you. That's painful, considering that we used to talk about $1.10 to $1.60 is what it costs to feed a cow over the summer. So it's biting a little bit, and I get it. The other thing that is available, and it may be applicable to some in this room, I know not everyone, but also with those designations, because we've hit D3, D4, and D2, there are some other services that are available through FSA Financial. And again, you'd have to stop in and talk with FSA about it, talk with your banker, see if there's an opportunity to get a guarantee. But the first thing that I know as a producer myself, we don't need another loan. My God, I can go get a bigger loan and put more land into a loan and a long-term mortgage, but God knows we don't need any of that. So let's try to migrate through this. The best thing you can do is just share some of what you may be experiencing. Ask a question. We'll see what we can do. Oh, crop insurance. One of the other things that has come up, can we get this stuff zeroed out and released? It has not been a past practice of RMA. They quit doing it several years ago. And generally, if you do get a zero, and some people have fought hard to try and get a zero 2017, they end up getting flagged and everything gets audited. So if you're lucky enough to get it down to a couple bushels and then you can do with it what you want, even if it's only this high, which, by the way, I got a picture today of a Red Bull, right? Red Bull cans, what are they, about that high? A guy said it in his field, took a picture and sent it to me. The wheat crop was half as high, so the wheat would have only been about that high. It wasn't heading out yet. I remember that in 2006. I had wheat that headed out 3 inches high. But in the event you have something, please get a hold of your crop insurance agent. Maybe there's an opportunity to graze it. They're going to hold off on you. And I can't blame them because they have to make sure they dot all their I's, cross all their T's. But there is a hardship going on here. And we are going to work with RMA to take the pressure off and give them a little bit of a reprieve so we can make good decisions out here and utilize the resources properly. I think with that, the only other thing I'm going to mention is that we did receive a grant on the Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Grant Program, and that can help. I know some of it went to extension, and we can help with mediation, we can help with credit counseling, we can help on the mental health side of it, which is going to be a big deal now. I will say that the worst thing that I've ever seen farmers, and experienced it myself, is when it's raining out and you can't get a crop off and you can't do anything, you sit and stew. At least in a drought, when I was busy and I was working, I only had to think about it when I stopped. Problem is, you never wished you stopped because then you had to think about it. But stress is real, and it's a real issue we're dealing with. So please reach out to your neighbor. Reach out to any of us. My phone is always on, and I try to return calls. So with that, Governor, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Doug. And first up, why don't we just, John, why don't you hit the highlights on the livestock program, and then we'll go after that to questions.
Okay. Thank you, Governor. As the Governor alluded to and the Ag Commissioner, the Water Commission has a drought disaster livestock water supply program. And what that is a cost share program whereby the Water Commission will cost share up to 50% on a project to get a reliable water source to your livestock. Each producer is eligible for up to 3 projects at a maximum cost share of $4,500 per project. And the Water Commission to date has approved $4.1 million, as the Governor alluded to earlier. Eligibility comes about when a drought disaster is declared by the Governor, and then we look at D3 counties and those that are adjacent to them. And given the current situation right now, the only county in the state that's not eligible is Richland County. So any of you who are from anywhere other than Richland County are eligible for this project. We're looking at reliable water sources, pasture taps, connecting to rural water, drilling wells, those types of things, pipeline extensions. So far to date, we are 10 weeks into the program. We have approved over 600 projects to the tune of $2.4 million, and we have more that we're waiting to be acted on. We've got the phone rings continually. Staff is very energized and adamant about getting these projects approved. Typical turnaround time for approval is less than a day. So by all means, if you think you have a potential project, reach out to us at the Water Commission. I do have a few sheets on the table over there. If you have looking for more information, you can also call 328-4989 or look on the Water Commission webpage. It's SWC, statewatercommission.nd.gov. So with that, Governor.
Thank you, John, and thanks. I know the team at the Water Commission is working around the clock to be responsive on getting these fast approvals. So we like it when government is nimble and quick. So tell the team thank you. A couple more acknowledgments before we go. I see we got Representative Dave Naring here. Thank you, Dave, for representing, serving the legislature, representing D8. Thank you for being here tonight. And also Julie Ellingson, I see her in the audience. North Dakota Stockman's always doing a great job. If you're in Stockman's Association, Julie is super effective during the legislative season, is always there for you. So thank you, Julie, and thanks for everybody there. And then also, I know that, I don't know if there's any other, I thought I saw it was Tom Brosegard. Did I see him? There he is right back there from Senator Hovind's. Tom leads all of the ag policy here in state for Senator Hovind. He's boots on the ground here. We see him at all these meetings, but raise your hand again if everybody doesn't know you, or stand up. If you got questions about federal programs or other things, he's here specifically to also hear from you. So thanks for being here, Tom. With that, do we have a mic that we're going to hand out in the audience, or they're going to share the one here that we have here? Or do we have one in the back? Mike has the mic. That's very handy. And so just raise your hand. He'll bring it to you. Again, if you can say your name and where you're headquartered out of your operation, then tell us a little bit about what you're experiencing or what challenges you may be having, whether it's with if it's a federal program, an insurance company, North Dakota DOT, I mean, whatever your concerns are, we want to hear them all. That doesn't mean we can solve them all. We can't solve them all today, but we want to hear them all. So we're here to listen. So we've got a hand up in the back there. Thank you. And if you can stand up too, that'd be super.
Yeah, my name is Paul Anderson. I farm over by Cole Harbor, and Commissioner Goehring, I was the guy that sent you the Red Bull can of the wheat. And I was out on...
You're famous. It's going viral already. It's got 2 million views. So.
Oh, wow.
And then Red Bull wants to sponsor you, too. So
thank you. Yeah, but Red Bull won't save this wheat this year, so it won't go that far. But thank you all for coming out today and being here with us on this meeting. So I also represent McLean County on the North Dakota Corn Commission board also. I'm just the county rep, and appreciate you all coming here. But I was out on Monday with my crop insurance adjuster. I'd reported what I expect to be a crop insurance claim with the wheat crop this year. We drove around and looked at the wheat fields, and 75% of it is probably, my adjuster has got some experience in similar gray hair to mine and remembers 1988, and he looked down at the wheat and thought the stand that we had this year looked worse than 88. This wheat was planted very early, like late March, early April is when this went in, and it's on sunflower ground, which is, sunflowers uses a heavy amount of water, so that's where that's at. Funny story, right across the road from where I'm at, some wheat on pea ground still looks like it has good potential yet, but seeded about 3 weeks later. So it's just a tale of two different crops that are out there. There's some that's good, and there's some that looks a little tough. So, but thanks again for coming here and listening to us and taking a look at it. Thank you. Thanks for sending that picture. But if you got in that early, did you also end up with you got that early heat, and then did you have no germination for a while because it was sat in the ground? It just sat there. We had probably The stand that we had come out early, the early part of the stand that came out was maybe only about a third of a normal stand there. We still put down a good starter program for fertilizer to give it a chance. And on our farm, we typically wait with our nitrogen application till we know what Mother Nature gives us for cards. But this year we didn't need to put down the extra nitrogen that we typically do in fourth leaf stage, but there was no need to. But it is already starting to shoot some heads out of that, out of the boot there already. So it's coming, and the heads are coming out, and it's not very tall, and it's smaller than 88.
Okay, thank you. Just raise a show of hands before we go to the next one. Next to Julie's got a hand up. But show of hands, how many people have this year tried to reseed something? A few of them? Okay, we want to hear from, we'll hear some stories at some point if you're willing to share those, but we'll go to right here, sir.
Good evening, Governor and Commissioner. Thanks for having this opportunity to discuss some of the concerns. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago we were here for the exact opposite. Thanks for the Water Commission deal. I've heard great compliments on that. I know some local guys that have done that. The procedure, like you said, is painless, so we appreciate those efforts. Thanks for the drought resource. Reach out. I think we're in dire straits now. You know, the record low precipitation and now this extreme heat is pushing this crop backwards. So I think, you know, we are in dire straits. We need to address this sooner. From the livestock side, this feed won't be worth anything. So I know hay and CRP can be a challenge, but we've got to reiterate the fact that we're going backwards every day. Even our small grains have gone from the vegetative stage to the reproductive stage. So we know that forage production is gone. It's going to reproduction. Because it's headed out doesn't mean it's going to fill. I think we got to get RMA here and have some discussions as to whether or not we can release this crop or not. I think moving forward, you know, if we can get something from the RMA, we've seen a lot of dirt blowing this spring. So some of this ground that's going to get released potentially does not have the proper ground cover on it. If we can come back in with some kind of forage crop to cover up that ground and maybe address some of the feed concerns. Commissioner, you addressed the feed costs. Feed costs are rising every day. There's no better way to secure feed costs or secure feed than to raise it yourself. So if we can have some help with RMA, I know that's a constant challenge, but if we can have that conversation and try to address that. You know, and I think some of the other things that we've asked for is in just the drought of 17, we had some hours of service extensions on hay transportation and livestock transportation. There's hay moving right now. There's livestock moving right now. I think we got to help these guys out with that and some fee waivers on that. So with that, thanks for all you guys have done, and thanks for the opportunity to be here.
And on the, I'll let you can jump in that. But on the hours of service on the hay hauling, with federal DOT rules, we can do that through executive order and create that waiver, but it's got a 30-day limit on that waiver, so we want to be strategic about when we put that on for the 30-day window that we need it the most. But I'll let Doug respond. But we've got to, even today in Bismarck, there's ground blowing south of town that you can see from a mile away that's starting to look like Dust Bowl, and we already had some of that at places with the talk to North Dakota Highway Patrol. We had traffic concerns on the interstate because it was blowing so hard. We had low visibility, like it was a blizzard here already this spring. So some kids weren't around during the Dust Bowl days or during the 1980s, but we got to make sure the insurance rules, the RMA rules, allow us to get these cover crops on, because we got to protect our soil, our topsoil in the state. Did you want to
tell you what? Why don't you hand him a mic, and I think he's probably has something important to share, and I'll just comment. Hi, Julie. I didn't even see you back there till I moved over here a bit. I didn't even know Tom was
She always hides behind the cowboy hats.
The thought I never had a chance, or I didn't finish when I stated earlier, in these transitions with administrations, we don't end up with an appointed individual to make that decision. And that is probably one of the biggest challenges. I don't really have a go-to person anymore within RMA. I do, but there are some mid-level people, and that's where we'll continue to try and work through. But we'll try to find somebody. If nothing else, we'll work through the back door at the White House and see if nothing else, Secretary Vilsack may have to be the one that intervenes on some of our requests and issues, because it comes back to a common sense approach to how you manage land and preserve the resource. That's been our challenge with trying to even get cover crops put into the crop insurance program. Because right now, if anybody is looking at replanting, maybe you guys can address this, the ones that have. I haven't replanted for years, but they always want you to put a program crop back in. Or they want to argue with you about, well, that's really not eligible. The issue is if you put any living plant in the ground, you're going to preserve that resource and protect it. And you probably get to utilize it for livestock feed. But that goes back to prevent plant issues that I know Julie and I talked about and worked on. Just allow us to put cover crops or something in there to suck up the moisture and to utilize that land and to help with soil health issues. What does it matter if it gets grazed or whether it gets cut? And I know to them, it's double dipping. When the public is paying a portion of that crop insurance premium, they don't want anything else done to it unless it's allowable. But we'll continue to work on these issues and try to go forward from there. Sir.
Yes, thanks you guys for showing up here. But I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going through that with a pinto bean.
Oh, yes.
And a pinto bean cannot handle, well, you get any sand, it just takes the top off, it's not going to grow. So I called them because I wanted to save this field. I want to get a cover crop like you're talking. And they will not do it. I mean, pinto beans, you got to go back to pinto beans. That's one thing they'll allow me to do. It's ridiculous, but I could not talk my way out of that. But you're on the right trail. I mean, and it doesn't have to be double dipping. Put a cover crop, maybe you can't even graze it. Maybe on this situation, this field is bad. Put a cover crop and you can't touch it, but it'll save that field. So if that makes them, right, you know, they kind of think we're trying to go after feed now or whatever. No, I just want to save the field. I need to get cover crop as quick as I can and hope I get rains and save that field, but they won't allow it. So I'm glad you guys you evidently heard about this before and working on this, so it's good. It's a real issue. It needs to be addressed quickly. But thank you.
Well, I hate to say it, back in my home country, there was some payloaders in the ditches moving topsoil, putting it back in the field this spring after it filled in. It looked like snowdrift with black dirt on top of it, but it was all just dirt. And so that's a scary thing, to be losing that resource that fast. Another question or comment, story, share it, somebody want to share? Hands up.
Armin, you got anything to share? You came a long ways to this meeting.
We got one right here, Jason, and then we can go next. Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name's Cale Nesham. I came here from Berthold, North Dakota. I'm on the North Dakota Grain Growers Association as well, kind of representing them here as well as a producer from that area. Just a quick overview of what it looks like up north there. We're in the D3 drought and have been for a while, obviously. Yeah, we've really only had about, probably since last August 1st, between then and now, probably on average maybe 2 inches of rain across the farm of usable moisture, call it. There was a little bit of snow. Yeah, I'd follow up with this cover crop issue. We have the soybean stubble is what really, last year's soybean stubble, I mean, a lot of fields up there maybe got 40% coverage the first pass of seeding, and maybe 2.5, 3 weeks later, we got about 3/4 of an inch of rain, and it got the rest of the seeds that were in dry dirt growing, and they were going to come up. And, we got that week of heat, 100 degrees plus, little tiny, just germinating wheat coming out of the ground, bare soil temp, probably 125 degrees or so. I mean, those basically burned off. And now we're looking at soybean stubble that's got wheat seeded on it that, it's maybe looks like 5 or 10 bushels, be pretty optimistic. I mean, there's not going to be cover. I mean, if we don't keep getting rain, there won't even be cover for that field to not blow. And I mean, you're going to lose a lot of topsoil this winter if we can't get something growing out there, some sort of stubble to hold this ground. And, it's not a good situation. Not sure what we'll be able to do about it, but I mean, it would be a huge win-win if we could get something growing out there and have these cattle guys that are really struggling for feed. I'd be more than willing to have something grow out there if we got some moisture and could produce something for them. But, you know, it's not up to us, of course. But, yeah, I mean, I think I have a little hope for these row crops still. Corn and soybeans look like they could, you know, they could still make a decent crop. But as far as this wheat crop, I'd say it's basically done. I mean, there's not going to be much there. And, you know, I got wheat that's 4 to 6 inches tall in the boot right now that I peeled open a stem the other day. The main stem had 5 spikelets on it. And those 2 tillers that were hanging on with it are going to burn off unless it starts raining, like I say. I mean, it's really been a combination between this heat and the no rain. It's just been a double whammy. You know, it's not conducive to growing. And, yeah, it's a tough situation. I know we're all kind of in the same boat here, but, yeah, just try to stay optimistic, and hopefully we can get something, you know, hopefully we get some rain here and get back to normal, but it's a tough situation.
Thanks for sharing that, and thanks for driving over. Thank you, sir.
Armin Anderson from up by Velva, McHenry County Commissioner, and I don't know, as a commission, we here at our last meeting declared our county a disaster. I don't know if that helps you guys out to know where we're standing or anything like that, but we figured if it'll help, it'll help. The other issue I want to touch on is U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I know it's a big no-no. They hate it when you talk about them, but it seems like every year when it gets dry, these guys are all of a sudden out torching off a quarter land. And we had it again. Okay, we're in a drought situation, a burn ban on, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife comes in there and torches off a whole quarter because they got trained professionals to fight the fire with. We had one out by our place in 2017 and got away and went across some of the alfalfa. Well, trained professionals shouldn't have got away on them, right? But now, while they were doing that, burning that fish and wildlife, the waterfowl production area off, we had fires out in the Badlands. Why weren't they out there helping them guys instead of burning off something that could have been grazed back here at home? I mean, the driest year we've had in a long time, and they're burning stuff, and we got fires going on out there, and they're purposely setting fires. I think they need to be held accountable for what they do. I know you're bucking the U.S. government, but aren't we the U.S. government? Aren't we supposed to kind of be in control of what's going on? And it just irritates me every time I see a big plume of smoke going up. It's the driest year, and they're burning off perfectly good grazing ground for no reason at all. I guess I've said enough.
I asked for it, right, Armin? So, to that point, depending on who's actually managing some of the refuge areas, we've actually come a long ways. There are some areas where there's a collaborative effort made with some of the local livestock people to utilize it and do a much better job. But we still have some other issues and other problems in other areas. And maybe the governor can address this, but I know we've had some conversations in the past with the Department of Interior and how you utilize resources and how you help it. And it almost seems like unless it's an act of Congress or it comes directly from the president, to have other agencies assisting, helping out, they just kind of say, you know what, that's not our deal. We're not going over there. We're not assisting until we're told. You aren't paid the big bucks, and you are not given extra points for being creative in government. And that's why you generally have to have others that are poking, prodding, helping, assisting, and trying to make a little effort in the right direction. But it's duly noted, and I believe it's something that, and I'm not going to speak for the governor, I will say that we'll certainly make a request and ask them to think about it in the future when we have fires across the state and you have these teams out here. Why don't you think about helping out? How can you take some of those resources, some of those people, and send them someplace else to help in an issue or a crisis? The other thing is, the locals generally tend to be in charge, and I don't want to say that they don't necessarily want to take orders, but we know working with Forest Service, you have Forest Service and you have the county that are fighting a fire. You have to establish the protocols, the process, and who actually has the authority here. And sometimes that can be a little bit of a challenge because the local guys actually know the landscape, the topography, and know where some critical areas are that they probably should be addressing. But it's a challenge, and I can feel your pain because I have a refuge about 6-7 miles from me, and it's gotten better, but it's not that great. And Cale, actually, I think you guys might be in a D4. In the Berthold area, if you go north of here, west of here, northwest of here, that's probably the worst extent of the drought that is being suffered in the state of North Dakota.
It looks pretty tough.
Yeah.
So Armin, before the next person goes, I say we're taking that one as an action item. We have had some excellent collaboration. Forest Service reports up to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. When we've had these fires in the Badlands, we've had some outstanding, out there, like on the Medora fire, there's 150 people fighting it, and 140 of them were local farmers and ranchers and people from the county. And we probably had 10 firefighters or something we had National Guard, we had Highway Patrol, we had some state personnel, so it wasn't all locals. We had state, and we had a bunch of local, they were doing it, and then, whatever the dozen firefighters from the feds, and they were all coordinating, working together. This is the first I've heard that U.S. Fish and Wildlife, which is part of Department of Interior, is over here doing stuff they're starting fires when we got another federal agency helping us put them out. So that's absolutely one. We will escalate that all the way up to the top of Interior because that makes no sense to be doing that, and nothing we like better than pushing back on the federal government right now. So we're happy to take these. That's the fun part of our job. So if you got more ideas like that, we'll take them. Sir, with the microphone, go ahead.
James Meyer, Farm and Ranch down by Wilton. Kind of a common sense thing for me. It always aggravates me when the county or state road crews get out and mow the ditch before I can get there. And for me, I would say, if you could save the money and tell those guys to stay home, it'd be much appreciated. We can cut the ditches, we can get the hay, we don't need them to trim them for us. It isn't gonna grow back, and there's no need for those tractors and mowers out there wasting money this year. It's just common sense.
Is that a second to the same? You're seconding that? Okay, great, well, you're seconding that one. As in agree. Okay, well, we stopped that in 2017, and so if it's happening because of state folks right now, then that's another action item. We'll get on that one. Have you guys seen state folks?
They already cut the ditches both sides.
Okay, all right, well, we like the specifics. This is Jace from my staff, raise your hand, Jace. And then county, right? Where's Reese? Is Reese here too? Reese is back here. I got two guys from my staff, and I got Mike. We're writing all this down, but if you can give us the actual stretch of road, then the more specific feedback we. Okay. State highway. Well, we're going to get there. Okay, Brad from DOT is here. I didn't know you were here, Brad. Okay, all right. So, Brad, we can just handle it right here. Stop mowing the ditches.
We did. We just put a halt till July 5th for now.
Okay.
So we can delay it further if we need to.
So when did these happen? Weeks ago, or?
It was just freshly cut today.
Okay, Brad, you got an issue. I want you to talk to these folks over here.
I heard by Wilton.
Yeah. Get the actual roads and find out why our request to stop mowing has not been implemented everywhere. Okay, thank you for being here.
I would say one thing though, concerning your counties. Please contact your county commissioners and talk to them. They generally don't like to hear from us telling them what to do in their counties. Isn't that true, County Commissioner? Yeah.
And our auditor just, we're supposed to be putting our weed notice, cutting of the ditches and the stuff. And as dry as it is, we're thinking about not trying to keep the people from cutting them unless you absolutely need the hay, because You know how sickle mowers are and any of this stuff. One
Yeah.
little spark and then we're starting the fire, burning our own hay up. So we're, as a county, thinking about not doing it. But we'll see how that goes.
At least not till fall, right?
Yeah.
If no one takes it by fall, you got to get it off because you don't want
But
the road
like,
snowed.
and like I said, contact your county commissioner, just tell them, stop the weeding.
Okay, other hands up?
Gentleman in the back,
Okay.
the guy I want to come work for me on my policy team.
Never. I'm Jared Higgins. I'm from northwestern Stutzman County, up there by Woodworth. And I mean, we're talking now about crops and everything in our hayland. I mean, there's nothing out there. I'm going to square bale some because that's the only thing that'll pick it up. I mean, my round baler will absolutely not pick it up. The pastures, I haven't even touched them, and they're going backwards every day. I mean, there's some that haven't even grown an inch on the hilltops or nothing. The buffalo grass is nothing, absolutely no thing out there. And then I have the wildlife issue. They burned 560 acres, I believe, in my township alone. Not just my county, my township. And it got away 3 times on them. And it's just becoming a huge issue. I mean, even these wetlands and stuff to go out and hay them, it's all cattails. There's no value there. We do have some CRP, but I mean, I've got guys calling my neighbors from 200 miles away trying to come in and get this stuff because there is no CRP left out there. And then as far as RMA is concerned about, we've got, 5-6 inch wheat that's full headed. I mean, it's not going to fill. I mean, there is absolutely nothing I know we can do about dealing with them, or it's hard to deal with them. So, I mean, my question is, and I have a question on Stutzman County, is because, the south end of Stutzman County got a huge rainfall. I mean, some of them places got 10 inches. You know how much we got? 4 hunters. So, I mean, so how do you adjust for the drought conditions in a county where one spot gets it and the other place gets nothing? I know them guys down there just got reseeded from the frost that killed them all. They reseeded it the next day. It flooded them out. I mean, so where's the, how are we going to mitigate that issue too? You got any suggestions?
I'm going to go back on the burning one because we're already working on this letter that we're going to send, but can you give me the name of your township?
Rosevelt.
Rosebud?
Roosevelt.
Roosevelt? Okay, heard of that name.
We're right next to Chase Lake Wildlife Refuge.
Okay, well that would also kind of make sense, since I believe that TR created that wildlife refuge, I believe.
We have a new, the good guy left to Montana, and now we got a new gal, and she decided to burn all our ground instead of grazing it, so.
Okay, well, that's specific about the 560 acres and the township. That's the kind of stuff that we'll put into our letter. It's going to make it more effective when we're running this thing up the chain. So thank you, and Reese and our team make sure we get contact information. We can follow up with anybody on this burn issue. Did you want to offer anything on the reseeding and the county issues?
I am well aware. Actually, I had a conversation with 2 producers today in the Stutzman County area, and they referred to the exact same thing you did. They've had hail, they've had frost, replanted, and it got washed out the next day because they had 9.5 inches of rain. And you're right, you have that issue going on. RMA is aware that you can have extremes. I mean, heck, it's agriculture. We are an extreme. But we'll have a conversation with them, and we'll make sure that it's not only in a written form, but it's also personal, so it's sharing. It'd be nice if it was directly with an administrator, but we'll get through some of these issues. I know back in 2019 when we had the huge amount of snow, the 37.5 inches that in October that came through.
That fell in Stutzman County as well.
Yeah, that fell in Stutzman County too, and Harvey really got slammed in those areas through there. That was almost unbelievable. But working with risk management agency, they understood it. They allowed for some flexibility. We'll just have the same conversation. I'm hopeful that they're going to understand that we have some real extremes going across the state. And I can attest to it on my own farm. We were so dry when we're planting. This rain cloud starts up, comes out of the south. It's 6 miles wide. I had to drive through it to go to the other field where I was planting corn at. And I can only drive 25 miles an hour through this. I got on the other side of it. My field was dry. I could plant that night. So, yeah, they got 2 inches there. We didn't get anything. In fact, when it finally hailed at our place, I was happy about it. Because it was the only moisture those fields had actually gotten all spring. Up until recently, we got 3,500s on it. So I can attest to the same thing, and let's hope they're sympathetic and we can find a way through this.
Well, coming back to this cover crop thing, though, we're reseeding some oats right now with some Sudan and turnips and radishes and some other things. I mean, we just do this on our own, but I mean, it's not coming. It's not going to grow. It's not going to germinate. I mean, we can seed all the cover crops we want, but there isn't going to be 3 inches of growth there between now and September.
Yeah, and what's happening now, we talk about, and I've had calls from the media about this issue. Well, it's rained in some areas, so now things are fine. No, all you've done is you probably have healed that pasture and that rangeland a little bit. You aren't producing any vegetation. It's going to stay status quo. It's going to be only so tall. The other problem is we move from cool season grass production into warm season grass production. That's a whole different type of vegetation. And it may be higher in protein, but it has a lot less vegetation that you're dealing with. So, and you can't just throw livestock out on a pasture right after it rains. It needs a little bit of reprieve and it has to grow a little bit. Well, what do you do with the cows in the meantime? Till you bring all these complex issues up to a reporter, they go, oh, so this doesn't look so good. Well, I'm not saying it's that bad, but it's not as good as you people think it is just because it rained. It's going to take a while. We got a lot of healing to do. And the issue about the cover crops that we've continued to bring up, and this goes back to Prevent Plant and other things within RMA, is they have to look at issuing, and it's been a while since I've been in the insurance game, but it's their standard reinsurance contract that's signed in the fall the previous year. That has to be issued before they can make any changes going forward. But we fought about this cover crops issue, and it's a battle with them. I wish we could just get them to see that it's a good practice. They're adopting it in some areas, but not others. So please, anything else you can suggest, or we'll run that case up the flagpole and see if we can make any sense out of that.
Like you said, it's not going to rain. No, that's probably true. It's probably right, but you got to try. What option do you have? You got to put it in the ground and hope it rains. Hope it rains. If it can rain late, we've done it all spring. Yeah, I mean, you always got to try. And let's get something better. What else are you going to do?
Well, egg producers by nature, I believe, truly came from God, because we are the only ones that operate in faith. Oh my God. We go out there and put a crop in the ground not knowing really what the price is going to be. We're not really aware of what the conditions are going to be. And who knows if we're going to be around long enough to harvest it. So every day you wake up and you just keep going. So I think we truly are the children of God.
Perry Mosier, Burley County rancher. I guess the question I have is on these fireworks. Is that a county issue where we got to get our county commissioners to get them shut down, or can the state shut these fireworks down?
It's primarily been a local issue, and I know it's super popular when the governor makes decisions for the whole state, so sure there'd be no fireworks around a fireworks decision. But I think that, I think I saw Morton County, did they make that decision, or was that City of Mandan?
City of Mandan
City of
did.
Mandan, but I think,
I don't have a problem if you want to make that decision myself.
Okay, all right,
Because I'm so close to Bismarck, and what little bit of hay I do have, I'd kind of like to keep it. And with them not allowing fireworks in Bismarck, guess where they come? Out into the rural area and set them off. And of course, when they're done, they leave and they don't make sure they're out. So,
well, I think Dave's got a hand up back there, but I think we're going to continue to see across the state a wave of city and county restrictions on fireworks. I mean, that would just make complete sense. We'll certainly support all those local decisions that they're doing that.
Kathleen's here also.
But
Yeah,
fire away, Dave.
I did see that Burley County put a ban on today.
Burley County did today? Yes. Good. Well, what you're saying, we got to have the cities and the counties coordinating, because we can't just be going outside the city limits.
Excuse me, Governor.
Sure, tell us your name.
Kathleen Jones, I'm a Burley County Commissioner.
Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having this so close to my house.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I signed a ban today. Yeah, I believe the media picked it up about 3 o'clock. City of Bismarck has never allowed fireworks, with the exception of those in the governor's backyard. The Burley County Commission did not donate those this year. I have no control over that issue. That's state property, and all I can do is a county. Thank you very much.
One clarification, I'm not setting off fireworks in the backyard of the Capitol, but I think she's referring to the event that's the Capitol Ground sponsors every year, which competes with the Mandan Rodeo. They both have got nice things going on. One quick update that I just came in, and maybe Tom's got more on this, but I know Senator Hoeven has been pushing hard in his role on ag appropriations to get the acting head of RMA here. And then Senator Hoeven, when Vilsack was in a hearing yesterday, asked if they would send the acting, it's Richard Flournoy, I'm not sure Flournoy, how I pronounce his name, but he's the acting head of RNA. So we're going to double down. So the state will be asking to get the head of RMA here. Hoeven's asking, Kramer and Armstrong will pile on. We'll just all keep hitting them, because I think, all of these things that Doug's described accurately, we don't have time to spend months, going through this. And I tell you, the last administration, when we had Sonny Perdue, when we put in our requests a couple of times during the drought in 17 for drought relief, Sonny Perdue had been governor of Georgia, had been through droughts. He turned around our requests in under 24 hours. That had never, ever happened before from USDA. It's like government slow moving. That administration, they were flying on some of that stuff. So anyway, we'll keep pushing hard, because we know what responsive looks like. We saw it in 2017, and we'll hold that up and try to get this guy here so he can hear it for himself. Next question or comment from anyone here? Please go ahead. Yes, thank you. Pass the mic on down.
Since we have a break, I just wanted to highlight some of the resources we have in Extension, if you're not aware. So there's a couple handouts I put over there. This one just shows our drought website and the type of information we have there, from livestock, crops, to farm and ranch stress resources. And then this one, we worked with the Department of Ag as well as Stockmen's Association on, and it's a list of different handouts, publications, so you don't have to go searching for them. It has active links if you look up on the website. So livestock, these are all livestock related, and then it also has links to the information on the federal programs related to livestock assistance on those. A couple of things that we have at the county offices have, so if you're in Oliver County, Rick, and here in McLean, Cala, they're doing livestock water screening right now. A lot of them, our county agents have screened over 500 or 400 water sources this year already. 40 of those have been potentially toxic, and they'll help you. So they'll do a screening for total dissolved solids and sulfates, and if it exceeds a certain threshold, they'll help you submit a sample to the lab for analysis and help you make that decision of what steps next, if you guys need to get a hold of State Water Commission, or if there's other options available to you for that. As we move forward and we're talking about harvesting some of those crops that are failed, we're going to be thinking about nitrates and toxicity of those crops. And most of our county agents are able to do nitrate quick tests in their office to see if nitrates are present. And then they can help you send that in for additional analysis so you know what levels of nitrates you're dealing with, and you can adjust your ration and blend that appropriately so that you can safely feed those resources to your animals. So more information over there, and yeah, thank you all, especially if you have a chance to talk to your county agents. They have been doing so much. Since February, we've been talking about drought, trying to get people thinking about it, preparing for drought. They are weekly submitting reports to our state climatologists to help inform the drought monitor map. And so they're really playing an important role, boots on the ground, getting that information up the chain.
Thank you, Miranda. And I see you've got a stack of cards in front of you. So again, Miranda Meehan, who's the Extension Disaster Coordinator statewide. And so she's got information up here if you want to connect with her. If there's other questions from here in the back, we got one, but I want to tee it up. Caitlin, I'm going to be calling on you to say a few words from FSA. I think if you can do that in a second, but
I'm
please.
Shelley Zish from Pettibone. And however the last few years have gone, we had drought for 2 years, we were flooded in 19, and we've had drought in 2020, and we're in drought now. I don't know if anybody's signed up for the LFP program yet through FSA, but the formula they've got a nice worksheet on NDSU's website. You plug in your county, it tells you what you're allowed and how many acres per head and stuff. And right off the bat, they take off 40%. So I think that's something maybe the federal government can help out on. And then out of that 60% that they have left of what the $31 is what they're allowing for a cow-calf pair, they take out the 7%, just about 7% sequestration. So maybe if we can I don't have a problem with the sequestration, but maybe if we can get that 40%, because the paperwork's already going to be filled out for that program anyhow, I think it'd be a simple solution to get another 40% in producers' pockets. Also with the haying the CRP, I know like the CP23, they've allowed us to hay and graze it on a 3-year rotation. But last year, since we were in a drought, a lot of that got hayed, and 25% of that was set aside. So maybe if we can get that 25% released and be able to hay that would be helpful. Or even a portion of the stuff that was hayed or grazed last year. That would also help out considerably, because that's got nice green off of the 2 inches we've had in our area too. Another solution is with the rainfall protection insurance. Maybe, I know in years past, when there were droughts, the crop insurance, some of that got doubled, or they had an extra stipend in there to help out. So that would help out to buy feed if we could maybe double what you received in your rainfall protection. Because after 2019, we thought we were nuts to take out rainfall protection in 2020, but it's been a godsend. Just a couple things we thought about that might help out. I know cows can't eat a check, but it would help to be able to buy some supplements and maybe get some extension on when you have to sell, or if you have to sell, and how many. So just a couple solutions.
Shelley, thank you. That was a great list. I was trying to write them all down as fast as I could. I didn't get them all, but Reese, can you make sure you get Shelley's contact information, because you had some very specific suggestions we'd want to follow up with. While we're on that, Julie, I'm going to call on you in a minute, not right now, but if you've got some other broad ideas relative to livestock, we'd love to hear them. I'm sure the group would too. But Caitlin, we have, statewide, USDA has designated 43 counties as primary disaster areas, and then counties that are adjacent to disaster areas are eligible. This is for the FSA emergency credit. As Doug said, sometimes the last thing people need is more debt. But what that, as you would know, then that's 43 counties plus 5. That gets us to 48. That leaves us with only a few in our state. Cass, Richland, Trail, and Sargent are the only undesignated counties, at least on as of today. Is that right? I'm looking at on what I've got in my notes right here. So for FSA, but if you're in a designated or adjacent to a designated, then you are eligible for some of this FSA emergency credit. But maybe there's some, either on this program or others that FSA share with these folks and those online things that people want to call FSA, what you might be able to do for them or not.
Everyone, can you hear me? Okay. Right now, our offices are working on getting the acreage reporting, so that's going to be the first thing that you're going to want to do when you stop into the FSA office. We have to get those grazing acres reported for the livestock forage program that was referred to back here. Right now, McLean counties, we are making what's called 5 monthly payments, about $31 per adult beef cattle. So if you call in, you can set up an appointment. We are very busy right now, and we'll try to walk you through those parameters. We are gonna need leases on rented pastures, or we have a form called an 855 that the landowner would have to sign off on. With CRP, my best suggestion for you is, because there are so many different practices, and they can, if the conservation plan allows it to be grazed or hayed, we have to specifically look at that CRP contract itself. So I don't want to say everything's opened up, but there's a good chance, and we're going to do whatever we can to make it work between the emergency, or what we called a managed hang. Other big things that we have going on is we have, under our ELAP program, it's our Emergency Livestock Assistance Program, we have a water hauling program for your cattle. So if you don't typically haul water for your cattle, that is a program that we would reimburse you for. We'll work with you on that if you call and inquire about it. Just another thing you can talk to us folks at FSA about.
And Caitlin, I know in 17, FSA offices around the state got completely buried, and one of the things we worked on with Sunny Purdue was staffing, where we got more people brought in. Give us a sense, are we at that spot where we should be trying to hustle to get more human resources to help you process all these requests?
You know, I can't speak for the whole state itself. I do know that there are some offices, though, that are having trouble backfilling positions right now because the Office of the Personnel Management is blocking those. They're saying they have too many staff, or there's a block on it. A hiring freeze is what they're calling it, and they're experiencing that in both Burley and Morton counties right now. So I do know of that throughout the state. We could definitely use temporaries, is what we call them, and the more help, the better to get these programs administered.
Okay, well, I know that we worked on this in 17. Let's dial that back up again and see if there's something we can do there, because nothing worse than actually having a program that might help and then the paperwork gets in the way. Okay, Jace, did you have other microphone out there, other questions?
I do have.
Fire away.
I do have one question. Is anybody, and it sounds like you might be using the rainfall index program, is anybody else using that? The rainfall index program. So we'd have a few. One up here and one. Actually, we dealt with this issue 7 years ago, 5 years ago, I think even 3-4 years ago again, trying to get that thing ironed out and have more data points that they can collect information from, because, and that's the problem, you can have a thunderstorm come through, and the way that grid is set up, it rains down here, and by the time they blend it off all the way up to the next data point, everybody in between doesn't get paid. And yet that might have only hit one spot. And that's one of the issues. Now I understand there's been some corrections and some changes that were supposed to be addressed 2 years ago, but I'll need to do a follow-up on that again. Western North Dakota uses it quite a bit, but they're getting frustrated.
The other issue with it is the delay in claims processing. I believe RMA can sit on that for 45 days. So ranchers need the money now, but they can't get their claims taken care of for 45 days because RMA takes that time to process.
Not only that, but it's almost like going back and reconciling the data before they even start that. It's kind of like waiting for a check if you sell a load of corn or something. Yeah, they got long timelines in there. Sir, you did have your hand up.
Well, they're supposed to be paid in March on that deal. They're supposed to be paid. The check was supposed to be coming at 45 to 50 days. We were already getting paid in February. They figured the 10th of April. I got my check yesterday.
Really? And this is for back in February?
February. But I mean, and then not only do they do that, I mean, every .001, hundredths of rain, they're counting every last little tiny bit that doesn't even settle the dust.
Yes, they do.
I mean, it doesn't even settle the dust in my yard. We never even stopped branding calves that one day. I mean, and they counted that as a rainfall event.
And guys get frustrated with the other aspect of it is there could be the next following year where they're just fine, but because the way the data is collected, entered, they actually get paid, and they had a good year. So someone was bold enough in RMA to actually say at that public meeting, well, you should be happy because it worked. It's just you have to stay in the game long enough for it to average out, I guess.
I might not have 15 years to stay in the game.
I get you. Like I said, I thought it was a bold statement. Just pay me for the issue and the problem I have, the premium that I paid for on this policy. Yeah. Thanks.
I mean, they've got the only other program for like when you use cover crops or anything, we pull the rainfall on our fields too as well, because it's the only way we got to cover anything on it. Because I mean, there is no RMA crop insurance for when you put more than one crop down at a time. Even Sedan, I mean, doesn't count in our area, or sorghum, because it's not, we're too far north, they say.
Armin?
One more quick question. Is there any cloud seeding going on? We seem to have a lot of storms coming, and they start out in the western part of the state, and they get rolling this way, and they get to about Highway 83, they disappear, then they load back up over Harvey, and we get skipped, I don't know how many times this summer now. It's like, and I'm like, Doug, if it hails, hail is moisture. We need any kind of moisture we can get right now. Snow, wouldn't even bother me to have snow. But if we're cloud seeding to save some hailstones from hitting some cars in town, most everybody has full coverage in their cars. Let them get hit with hail. The insurance companies will make money then anyway, or spend money, and the auto body places can get fixed, everything up. But we don't want to be stopping any hail or any rain of any kind. I think we need any kind of moisture we can get right now.
Well, John, maybe do you have an update from the Water Commission? Because I know this was a county-driven thing, and I know there was only a few counties left that were doing this in 2017, and I think Ward stopped there. So
right.
It's if there is some, it's limited.
Right. It has been very limited this year. The northern part of the state, they're looking at hail suppression. That's the counties. Trying to think. It's Williams, Montreal, and I'm missing one. Ward pulled out of the program sometime back, and this year there has been very little moisture anywhere, so there's been very minimal cloud seeding done at all. Down in the southwestern part of the state there, they do it for rain enhancement as much as anything, but again, we've not been flying. There was an event that went in, was that last week, where they had the tornado out in McKenzie County and so forth, and policy is that if there's tornadic activity, we can't fly, so there was no activity taking place then.
I will say, Armin, and I know this question, it was brutal when we sat through months of those conversations, but there's no cloud seeding within 150 miles of me, and you still see rain showers just stop on that side of the road. And it happens 3 times, and you're like, really? What do you have against me? I know it's not personal. Sometimes it's just to help refine you and make you a little bit better. But this year, if you just look at those jets, look at the jet stream, look at weather patterns, look at even south of us. There are places that are dry and stay dry, and there are places west of it that are getting moisture, and you're like, that doesn't even make sense. If you go west of the river, south of here, they've had far more moisture than we have on the east side of the river, which is odd, but it's just how things are lining up this year. And then you got a pocket up here, which generally is pretty decent for moisture, and you guys are getting slammed. I mean, you couldn't buy a rain. You're the worst spot in the state of North Dakota.
If we have others that have questions, but I'm going to ask General Dorman. We're fortunate in North Dakota to have one of the highest performing organizations in the state. In my mind is actually the North Dakota National Guard, always ready, always there. And he and I just had an opportunity to send off 225 soldiers on deployment for a year at an event last Saturday. So we got the North Dakota citizen soldiers that continue to serve our country as they have since prior to 9/11. And so a great group of people. But when we had fires coming towards the city of Medora, anybody that's out there will tell you we would have lost that town. We'd already evacuated if the Blackhawks hadn't gotten out there and got there just in the nick of time to take care of it. So again, I want to thank General Norman for his leadership, his preparedness, his readiness. I can tell you, talking to other governors, some other governors, if you'd have called the general and said, hey, I need some Blackhawks, they'd have said, great, give me 48 hours. I called him, and in 5 minutes later, we had people running like firemen in a station, heading to get in their seats, and they were on scene within hours of leaving from Bismarck, on scene within hours because they were ready to go. It made a huge difference. So I want to just say, let's give everybody in the National Guard a hand. So.
All right. Yeah. Thanks. Is this working? All right. Thanks, Governor, for that. Cody Schultz is with me here today. My job under the Disaster Act is when the governor declares a disaster, that act comes into play. And it is our job to bring a whole of government, a whole of community team together to get after the problem sets that are in front of us. We support the Water Commission, we support the Commissioner and his efforts, but we're really here today to listen. Listen to the people we serve. We all put the uniform on because we want to serve others. And when you hear these stories, it motivates you to work harder and do a better job. So I appreciate the stories today. I've said before, I quit farming in 1962. And I'm pretty old, but you can do the math. My job was, I was 2 years old. I was in charge of the barn cats. So I have some experience, but God bless you guys, because when I hear about all these federal programs and what you got to go through to do what you do, God bless you for what you do. I'm in uniform, so I'm not allowed to say anything negative about the federal government, so I won't. But thank you for what you do.
No restrictions on me on that thing. I'm not a...
wear civilian clothes next time and tell you what I think. For Cody and I, again, it's our job to coordinate the drought and wildfire response. And it's our job to find creative solutions to the problem sets in front of us. And Cody and I don't have any pots of money to dig into, but we got a lot of smart people that will make the phone call, work with other state agencies, work with non-state agencies, push the federal government. So again, I appreciate just the opportunity to listen to what you all are going through today. We are here to serve you. So hearing your stories, understanding or getting a better appreciation for what you're going through, I think allows us to do a better job. Last thing I'm going to say too, probably got no business making recommendations to you, but the same thing I tell my soldiers and airmen is check in with one another. With your family, with your friends, with your neighbors. You just need to check in how you're doing. There are resources available. Department of Human Services is part of our team. Extension Services have programs. There are other programs out there. But check in with one another. And if somebody needs help, make sure you help them to wherever they need to get that help. So I just commend that to all of you. Some of these situations are very difficult. I understand that. Can't always go alone. But North Dakotans, farmers, ranchers, we help out one another. So I just ask that you check in with everybody. And with that, Cody, you got anything you want to add?
Real quick. General Dorman did a great job of underlining what we do at DES. We don't deal necessarily with the drought, but maybe with some of the impacts. We try to help out the teams that are working the wildfires. Any volunteer fire or EMS folks here? If there are, raise your hand. Huge thank you. I mean, we've had a tough year and a half from EMS to COVID and now some of the fire response. Another thing that the legislature did and the governor signed is we did get some money to help with fire response. And one of the things we're trying to stand up is an intrastate mutual aid program. So if you guys are out on calls and you need help, work through us, work through the Forest Service, and we'll try to get you some help. And we put out a survey to all the fire chiefs if you're willing to go elsewhere to help others that are in need as well. Certainly do that. On the fire safety side, we'll continue to do some messaging, especially on the fireworks. If your county does not have that clearly defined, that fireworks is part of their burn ban, I believe we've got every county in the state but 8 that have some sort of burn ban in place. And we do hear most of those are out east that do not, that receive some rain. But make sure that I know we're dealing with county emergency managers, asking them help us to do some messaging on fire safety in these dry areas, but make sure that the county commissions have defined fireworks as part of that burn ban. That's helpful. I know we've got county commissioners in the room, so message that. And I'll just triple tap what the general said, and Commissioner Goehring, in terms of the mental health side of this, is we've had a tough go of it in North Dakota, going back to DAPL, floods, droughts, COVID, droughts. They keep coming, so be a resource for each other. Do not hesitate to reach out for that help. There are professional resources or just the personal piece. Be a resource yourself if you can. And I know NDSU, I believe, has a kind of a train the trainer type thing on the mental health piece, that there's probably some literature on one that's happening. So help those you can, but huge thank you to everybody.
Thank you, Cody. Thanks, General. And just to follow up on the take care of yourself. Human Services Department, North Dakota Department of Humans, this week launched a comprehensive behavioral health crisis response system, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's pretty simple, 211. It's not 911, it's 211. So if you know somebody, you got a friend, a family member, a neighbor that you're worried about, someone in your family, call that number, ask for their advice about how to approach the situation, or you yourself can call it. And yes, you want to add something to that? Can we get a microphone up here? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Laura Gitter from West Central Human Service Center, and just wanted to let you know there's some literature on 211 over there on the table as well.
Perfect. Thank you for being here, and thanks for getting that program up and going. That'll be a good one. 211. Okay, Doug, any closing comments?
No, I just want to thank everybody for being here this evening, and I know that probably many of your neighbors couldn't make it for one reason or another. Please feel free to reach out to any of us, our offices, and share with us any thoughts that you have, because it's amazing. You think of something in just a different way, and it gives you the ability to take a different approach, and maybe we can come up with a solution and an option for especially USDA when they're trying to address some of our concerns and needs. And it's a complex issue. Quite frankly, when you look at the state of North Dakota, I mean, we got 13 different microclimates. We're diverse. Our multiple commodities that are produced in this state. Think about when they're trying to enact those laws in 5 U.S. territories and 50 states. That's why sometimes they write the rules the way they are and they don't make sense. But if we can come in with some options and maybe have a rider into some of our crop insurance programs, give them the answers. They want to do the right thing. They're just stuck because Congress writes things in a certain way, in a certain fashion, and they don't want them moving out of those lines. So please share with us if you have anything. Door's always open. Phone seems to always be on. And we appreciate your attendance, and thank you, Governor, for hosting this tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner, and and thanks to everybody here at the head table, and thanks to all the team that was here. And I want to say thanks to anybody that was watching online as well. Appreciate we're thinking about you also. And again, some of us are going to be here for a few minutes. If you didn't get a chance to ask your question, you can. And then Mike is pointing. So we have a buffet of highly cold food that was set out at before. Okay. Okay, so there's food here. Mike, is there anything you want to say about it? Anybody got a microphone? Can we put a little pitch on this food? Other than me just saying it's cold food, that was really good. Like everybody's going to rush over there, but.
And it might even be meant to be cold.
What do we have? What do we have tonight for our guests?
Mike, what do we have for the guests? All sorts of deli sandwiches from Schloss.
Okay, deli sandwiches supply. They're supposed to be cold. They're fantastic. They're incredible. They were made fresh just hours ago. Okay, well, with that, thanks for sticking around. Grab some food. We'd love to get more feedback. And again, thanks to everybody here that's working together. And when part of the reason why Doug and I decided to hold these meetings was in 2017. We set them all up, and then sometimes it would actually rain. Right after the thing. So we're like, okay, so maybe we don't know if we're going to, it doesn't look like that's going to happen today, but we thought if we set up enough of these, maybe they would.
Tomorrow, the next day?
Yeah, it could happen. So anyway, thank you very much, and thanks for the feedback, and hang in there.